are out.
Curry gets it, the lights go out.
The game is over, and we're here to pick up the pieces. This is Warriors Wrap-Up on 95.7 The Game.
2 games down and 2 wins, and not just any kind of wins. We're talking about blowout, fourth quarter snooze fest wins. How about this for the Golden State Warriors to kick off the 2024-2025 NBA season? Welcome into Warriors Wrap-Up here on 95.7 The Game. Mark Randy with you. The Dubs, first in Portland on Wednesday, win by, we were talking about it on Warriors Wrap-Up a couple of nights ago as a 35-point win. There was a scoring error. It was changed to a 36-point win. And then tonight in Salt Lake City against the Jazz, 127-86, the final. The quick math in my head, that's a 41-point win for the Golden State Warriors. It is the second largest loss at home for the Utah Jazz ever. Second largest home loss for the Utah Jazz ever. Also, how about this? This is the first time in NBA history that any team has opened the season with consecutive wins of 35 or more points. This is also, as you would, as logic would follow, the Warriors' margin through 2 games plus 77. That's the largest margin of victory through 2 games in NBA history as well. The Warriors through 2 games are doing things that no other team in the history of the NBA have ever done. And I can already hear all of you guys, dialing your phones right now, 888-957-9570 to join the conversation. That's also the Comcast Business text, and I'll be keeping an eye on that all night long here on Warriors Wrap-Up. And welcome in once again. It's Mark Randy with you here on a Friday evening. It was just the Blazers, and it was just the Jazz. Yeah, and I hear you. But all you can do is play who's in front of you, and it's hard to be too upset to find too many qualms with the way the Warriors are playing basketball right now. 127-86, the final score. The Dubs beat the Jazz by 41 points, and they've just had multiple snoozers in the second half to begin the season. But it's so early in the season, even if it's, garbage time in the fourth quarter, as long as your team's on the positive end of that garbage time, you're still locking in and watching these games and paying attention to these minutes. I mean, you have now had consecutive games where all 14 players on your roster have played. Guy Santos got the fewest minutes tonight, and it was 5 minutes and 56 seconds, about 6 minutes. How about this for the Golden State Warriors? The most minutes a Warrior has played in a single game this year, 27. That was Steph Curry tonight. 27 minutes and 25 seconds, a little more than 27 minutes, but just for sake of easiness here, 27 minutes, the most minutes a Warrior has played through 2 games so far this year. No one has gone more than that. Steph Curry played 25 minutes against Portland, 27 minutes and 25 seconds today. That's the most minutes a Warrior has played so far this year, and it is early. It's a couple of teams that were not playoff teams last year. I should also add, however, the Warriors were not a playoff team last year, and they're doing this to also not playoff teams last year. But anytime you can do that and you can limit minutes and you have consecutive games to begin the season where none of your key veteran pieces have to play a second in the fourth quarter, that is valuable. Very valuable. It wasn't until the 13th game of the year last year where Steph Curry did not have to play an entire fourth quarter. Didn't have to play at least a single second in a fourth quarter. He did not play like the full 12 minutes of the quarter. You know what I'm talking about. He has not played a single second in the fourth quarter through 2 games this year. And opponents aside, that's impressive. That is valuable. And as the Warriors go forward on this season, in order for them to accomplish what they want to accomplish, they're going to have good health. And how do you kind of stack the odds in your favor in terms of good health? Well, it is not having your aging veteran stars that are so important to this basketball team. It's not having them have to play 35 minutes and having them have to play 9 minutes in a fourth quarter at elevation at Salt Lake City. So Important, and it was impressive for the Warriors today. What else was impressive for the Golden State Warriors? I mean, it's simple, it's obvious, and I'm seeing some of the text coming in on the Xfinity or on the Comcast Business text line, the 925 and the 415, shouting it out already. I mean, Buddy Hield, how great has he been? Buddy Hield, awesome in his second consecutive game to begin the season. Wednesday against the Blazers, he was very, very good off the bench. And he was even better today. How about this for Buddy Hield? 27 points. He was 10 for 14 from the field, 7 of 9 from downtown. Also, not to go overlooked, I mean, everything else that he was doing in this basketball game. Obviously, the first thing you think of when you hear the name Buddy Hield and when you watch him play is his shooting. And if it wasn't for Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, you might think of Buddy Hield as one of the greatest shooters of all time. I mean, he is incredible. I mean, he's still up there, just a few pegs down because, Steph Curry and Klay Thompson are Steph Curry and Klay Thompson. Buddy Hield, an awesome three-point shooter, but also 4 rebounds. He had 6 assists tonight. He had a really nice dump off to a cutting GP2 who slipped the screen on him. It's nowhere near Steph level gravity, but you come up and you try to run a pick and roll with Buddy Hield, and you're going to have a couple of defenders that show out on Buddy Hield. And if he's capable and, able to make that kind of pass over the top of a couple of pressing defenders and lob it into the rolling man or the guy who slipped the screen, you're going to have an advantage there. That's the famous Warriors play that this dynasty was built on. It was Draymond, Steph, pick and roll. Draymond sets the screen, either slips it or just rolls after he sets the screen. His defender is obviously freaked out that Steph is just going to go around the screen and hit a three-pointer, so he's got to come out and show. Steph's defender's having a hard time getting around the screen set by Draymond, so Draymond rolls. Steph, throws it over the top or a nice bounce pass around those two defenders, gets it to Draymond, and suddenly Draymond and the rest of the Warrior offense have a 4-on-3, or you can even narrow that down. You get down towards the paint and you got a 2-on-1. And that was where, originally Andrew Bogut had the alley-oops. That was where JaVale McGee had the alley-oops, where Kevon Looney, maybe not as aggressively had the alley-oops, but had those easy buckets. And it's where Jonathan Kuminga has a big role on this team right now as well. And same goes for Trayce Jackson-Davis. That play, which has just been the bread and butter for the Warriors for so many years. Again, it's not quite the same because no one's gravity is like Steph's gravity, but Buddy Hield has that same sort of thing, especially the way that he's shooting right now. He did most of his damage in the first half. By the way, 24 of his 27 points were in the first half. He was 9 of 11 from the field in the first half. He was 6 for 7 from downtown. And how about this? Buddy Hield has the most three-pointers made in the first 2 games of a season in Golden State Warriors history. Let that sink in. Steph is entering his 16th year in the NBA? He's had 16 shots at his first 2 games of a season, and it's Buddy Hield to top that list. And that list is just littered with Steph and Klay and Steph and Klay and Steph and Klay over and over and over and over, as you would expect. But Buddy Hield now number 1. 11 made threes. 12 made threes for Buddy Hield in his first 2 games this season. Also just happens to be his first 2 games as a Golden State Warrior. That's the most made three-pointers in a Warriors player's first 2 games of a season. Buddy Hield holds that record now for the Golden State Warriors. He has fit in perfectly. He's been coming off the bench, and I'm sure the calls to get him to start are going to start coming through a whole lot louder now, and we will talk about it. We got to talk about the starting lineup because Steve Kerr stuck with the same starting 5 from Wednesday, as expected. No surprise there. It had another slow start, that group did, and that group is Steph Curry, Andrew Wiggins at the 2, Jonathan Kuminga at the 3, then Draymond and Trayce Jackson-Davis. That starting 5 struggled again to begin the game. This game followed a very similar script as Wednesday against Portland. Slow start, especially offensively, can't really get a lot going. you make a few subs, and then you take off and you never look back. The difference was Wednesday against Portland, that same starting group didn't have a great outing in the third quarter either. That group did put together a really nice run of minutes together to begin the third quarter. It was more so based on defense than offense, and that's how that group is going to have to get things done if this is a group that we see consistently moving forward, and we might not. We'll talk about that a little bit later as well, and I want to take your calls. I see some of them lining up, 888-957-9570. I will in just a sec, and we will talk about that. But you have, Buddy Hield, who's filling in such a nice role right now and is coming off the bench and seems to be doing great in that spot as well. And how about Andrew Wiggins? I mean, there's so many things to be excited about for the Golden State Warriors. And the most recent text on the Comcast Business text line, shout out to the 510. Thanks so much for tuning in on a Friday night. Wiggins might be back to 2022 Wiggins. I mean, you saw what Wiggins did tonight, right? I mean, this is the Wiggins that we've been waiting for. We being, I think every single Warrior fan out there over the last 2 years, ever since he showed us what he's capable of at his best in the 2022 playoffs, when he not only guarded the opposing team's best guard or wing, but then also was shooting threes at a high clip, was getting to the paint, was posterizing Luka Doncic in the postseason, was rebounding the hell out of the basketball. Ever since then, Warrior fans had just been hoping he'd be able to get back to that level. And today, this is really, really encouraging. Andrew Wiggins might have had the second biggest impact on the Warriors winning today, probably behind Buddy Hield, because Buddy was just so good shooting the basketball. It's hard to have a bigger impact than someone who just goes 7 for 9 from downtown, right? And kind of had a balanced all-around basketball game. But Andrew Wiggins, only 10 points, 3 of 10 from the field. Yet he was so good everywhere else. 13 rebounds for Andrew Wiggins tonight. 13 rebounds, 5 assists, had a couple of block shots as well. 3 of 10 from the field, but 2 of 4 from downtown. That 3-point strokes looking pretty good. Looking pretty good. Smooth for Andrew Wiggins. He played 23 minutes, and he was a plus 17 in those 23 minutes. Wiggins was really, really good. And generally speaking, that rebound number for Andrew Wiggins, it tends to tell the story of his engagement level, right? We spend so much time worrying or hoping that you get the Wiggins that we were talking about, the 2022 Wiggins that the 510 pointed out on the Comcast Business text line. And so much of it is just not going through the motions, and it's playing hard every second that you're on the court, and it's, keeping your head in the game, and it's playing smart, it's playing physical, it's playing that kind of style of basketball. And I think the rebound number for Wiggins kind of encapsulates all of that stuff. And it's deflections, it's steals, it's block shots. It's how locked in he is. I think a lot of that comes through in the rebounding category. And for Wiggins, it did today. 13 rebounds for him to go with 10 points, had a double-double. Also 5 assists, passing the ball well. This Warrior team, 35 assists on 51 made field goals for so many years during the Warriors dynasty. That 30 number in the assist category, in the assist stat line, was like the magic number. The Warriors get 30 assists and they do not lose. 35 assists tonight, 51 made field goals, 35 assists. You had 6 assists from Buddy Hield. How about this? Your leading assisters tonight, Buddy Hield and Andrew Wiggins. I'm not so sure. Obviously, it's never happened because Hield is so new to the Warriors. It's rare that you see Andrew Wiggins near the top of the assist leaderboard as well for a single Warriors game, but that was the case tonight. Lots to be happy about. We will get into maybe some of the troubling things, and I got thoughts on the starting lineup. I'm sure you guys do as well. You can give me a call, shoot me a text, let me know. 888-957-9570. That is the Comcast Business text line, and it is also the number to call and join the show. And let's go out to the phone lines here as we get going here on Warriors Wrap Up. Up first is Tristan. Tristan, what's up? You're on 95.7 The Game on a Warriors Wrap-Up. How you feeling, Tristan?
Oh, man, I'm feeling great. How about yourself, man?
I mean, it's hard to be too upset after a couple of dominant wins to begin the season, Tristan.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, the biggest thing for me is just how, like, it's good to see them actually have fun. You know, last two seasons, you know, fun wasn't probably, you know, in the vocabulary, just how everything's playing now and just with the locker room. So just to see everybody have a smile on their face and the ball movement looks like just superb, kind of going back to, you know, winning basketball. So that's always a pleasure to see. Like you said about the starting lineup, I think it probably needs some tweaks going forward just because, I mean, once again, you know, it's the Utah Jazz and the Portland Trail Blazers. You know, they're not exactly contenders, but just going forward, personally, if it was up to me, and I said it from the beginning, I would like Buddy Hield to start just to see what it looks like. I get it for defensive purposes. I understand why you probably wouldn't want him and Steph in the same, like, you know, starting lineup, but I don't even think he's a terrible defender. He tries, he has the effort. He's definitely not like, you know, Jordan Poole level of passiveness, but I just need some more spacing because, you know, if Draymond's not going to, you know, be the most reliable 3-point, you know, shooter or Trace Jackson Davis, we haven't really seen him have like a jump shot or even a temp one like that. And, you know, Wiggins isn't been great the first two games. I know he didn't put up a lot of points tonight, but 13 boards, you know, the 3-point shot looks so much better than it did last year. He looks engaged. That's all I've ever want from him is just to be engaged for however long he's on the court. Kuminga's situation, I get with the whole contract thing and, you know, it's probably, you know, weighing on him. I hope he gets it together. I want to see him get a shot to prove that he's that guy that he believes he is. So far, it's not really sticking the landing, but it's 2 games, so I don't want to overreact. But I don't like seeing Stephen Curry have to work so hard in that first quarter. So if they can tweak it up by this weekend and going forward, and hopefully, you know, they can find the right combination. He seems to play better with Hield so far anyway, Curry, so I hope they're able to kind of figure it out because, you know, you don't want Steph to get ran into the ground so early.
Yeah, you're right, Tristan. Appreciate the call. Thanks so much for tuning in. 888-957-9570. Go back out to the phone lines in a sec. I think the first thing you hit on, Tristan, is really, really important here. And I got to be careful because I know there's been a lot of conversation and a lot of talk around this topic. Warriors playing with joy. I've had a lot of people come up to me, you know, shoot me messages, tweet at me. I see it on the Xfinity or on the Comcast Business text line. Tristan just mentioned it. Warriors feel like, you know, that dynasty team that just was so happy, and the bench mob celebrating every made bucket and a poster dunk, and they're getting up off their feet. And it seems like a group that just absolutely loves to be around one another. And it's very, very early in the season. Like we got to take everything with a grain of salt. It's 2 games in, things can change. Like the real test of, you know, a person, and it goes for a team, the real test of a team's character, right, comes when things aren't going great. So that's yet to be seen. Everything we know up to this point, though, seems awesome. Everything we've heard, not just from the team, and the team is not going to badmouth anyone on the team. No one on the team is going to do that, at least not right now. Like it happens, but not right now. Everything we've heard from everybody close to the team, Anthony Slater, Monty Poole, all of those reporters who are with the team day in and day out are saying the same exact thing. This team loves to be around one another. And why I said I got to be careful here is because I feel like so many people take that and immediately compare it to what happened last year and just automatically assume, well, Clay left, that's why everyone loves each other now. I think there was some issue with how Clay felt about everything that was going on around him, and it probably dragged the team down just a little bit, but it does not go as far as saying the Warriors were sick and tired of Clay being on here, and now that they're rid of him, everything is great once again. This just is a group that really loves being around one another, and it's not like this team was full of bad people last year. So I want to be careful when we draw comparisons and conclusions based on how this team feels right now and what it might have meant for last year. What we know for sure at this point is Tristan's absolutely right. This team seems to love being around one another, and it's hard to imagine that not helping a team going forward. So that 100% I agree with, and it has shown through 2 games. Now, again, we will see when you hit a little bump in the road. You hope, of course, a big part of what went wrong last year as well had nothing to do with Klay, which was Draymond Green. Draymond Green won technical through 2 games, had a technical game 1, didn't pick up a tech today. That's progress. But Tristan is right. This team does seem to really, really love being around one another. The 408 on the Comcast Business text line, way too early, but they look good, dominating wins like 2015, 2016. Yeah, I had someone tweet at me earlier tonight, and I apologize if you're listening. I don't remember what your username or your handle was, but said, all these players sitting in the fourth quarters, it makes it feel like it's the dynasty era Dubs. And it's hard to not think back to something like that. Again, very early, a couple of non-playoff teams, but you do it on the road. And again, I keep couching it with this. We also got to provide the context of what this Warrior team was last year. This Warrior team last year was not a playoff team. And I know there were so many extenuating circumstances, but this Warrior team was not a playoff team last year. And you come out and you beat these 2 teams, and you do it in dominant fashion to the point where you make history. If you missed this, first of all, this was the Utah Jazz's second largest home loss ever. Second largest home loss ever for the Utah Jazz. How about this? This is also the first time in NBA history a team has began their season with consecutive wins by at least 35 points. And by the way, the Warriors did that on the road. How about this? The Warriors are plus 77 through 2 games. That, the highest margin of victory through 2 games in NBA history. The Golden State Warriors beat bad teams, sure. And this is the 415. Good point here by the 415 on the Comcast Business text line. The exact same thing I'm saying right now. Yes, it was the Blazers and the Jazz, but good teams beat the Blazers and the Jazz like this. No doubt. No doubt. The Warriors had so many games last year that were needlessly close and competitive, and they let a few of them slip away, and that might have been the difference in being a playoff team versus being a play-in team, losing the play-in and not making the playoffs. So, you put games away like this early, of course, you lock up a win now, but you also might help yourself down the stretch because you're keeping everybody fresher. And we've got to talk about this 12-man rotation. It's a legit 12-man rotation right now. Things, of course, are easier to. It's easier to do that when you are up by 20 points at halftime every single night, and we'll see what happens when you get a couple of tougher opponents on your schedule, and when it's maybe you're down by 6 points mid-third quarter, and maybe Steve Kerr kind of tightens the rotation a little bit. I'll be very interested to see that. But right now, you're playing 12 men. You're playing 14 men, but you're playing 12 regular rotation guys, and everyone is staying fresh. It was mentioned on the television broadcast, Fitz and Buki were on top of it. Kevon Looney comes in and basically sprints up and down the floor, beats everyone to offensive rebounds for like 8 straight minutes, then goes off, gets a breather. Trace Jackson Davis comes in and does the same thing. It's hard for opponents, I think, to keep up with the level of energy that the Warriors have because they're playing 12 deep. So interested to see how that continues to develop. 888-957-9570. We keep going here on the phone lines. Up next is Eric in Millbrae. Eric, what's up? You're on Warriors Wrap Up with Mark Grandy. How you doing, Eric?
What's up, man? Really impressed so far with this Dub squad. Starting new page with the whole new cast here, and I thought every game would be a struggle so far, but I love the way they're playing right now. They got the depth is looking nice. I think, to me, the Hield pickup, I think, is going to pay off. I thought he would be the perfect replacement for Klay. They really fleeced the Sixers. I don't know what the hell the Sixers are doing. That's why they're the Sixers. A lights-out shooter. I know he can be streaky at times, but when this guy's locked in, you see what he can do. He's been excellent so far, and I expect more of him. I think he's going to be the perfect complement to Curry, because when he's on, outside of Curry, I mean, he's as good as anybody, prime even Clay. So I think he's going to play a big factor for them. And just overall, I like the mixing and the match of lineouts by Kerr. So we got a bunch of young guys we're working in. The Warriors got more depth, especially in the tough West. And these are the games you got to win. And so, unlike last year, where there's a lot of struggle here, I'm anxious to see what they're going to do. I'm going to the home opener on Sunday. You're playing a Clippers team. I know last year was a struggle. They were very subpar at home. And so these are the type of games they should win at home. So I'm expecting Sunday against a Clippers team with basically a bunch of young guys and role players they're playing right now. And Kawhi is the usual IR Kawhi. That's a game you should pummel them. I expect them to come out in a rocking Chase Center for the opener and really run them out of Chase Center early. And so I hope this young nucleus continues to gel together, and really Curry doesn't have to shoulder the load like he had to do last year. And
yeah, Eric. I mean, I think you're spot on, and I'll be at Chase Center on Sunday as well. If you see me, stop by and say what's up. Appreciate the call, Eric. 888-957-9570. Yeah, I mean that's going to be a bigger test, I think, than Portland or Utah would be. Keep in mind, and Eric's spot on. The Clippers look entirely different right now than they did last year. Paul George is gone. He's in Philadelphia, although not playing yet because he suffered a scary knee injury, seemed to avoid a major injury in the preseason, but still hasn't played yet. We know what's going on with Joel Embiid. That's an entirely different story in Philly. Point is, for the Clippers, Paul George is gone. This might frustrate Warrior fans. The Clippers were willing to just let Paul George walk for nothing, get nothing in return, than play ball with the Golden State Warriors and work out a sign-and trade. They would have gotten something in return, maybe Kuminga and picks, maybe Kuminga and other stuff, and they would have gotten something back. That might frustrate Warrior fans. But anyways, Paul George no longer a Clipper. Kawhi Leonard is already out and is likely going to miss a while, indefinite, last I heard. So no Paul George, no Kawhi Leonard. You still got James Harden. It's essentially the James Harden show right now, and they've got some young guys that they're playing, and I think they're a better basketball team, even with their injuries, than Portland, certainly than Portland, and I think also better than Utah. So that will be a challenge, but you are at home. Eric also made a good point. The Warriors were not very good at home last year. So this is an opportunity to come out and defend home court, get your home slate off to a good start, improve to 3-0, and keep the positive momentum going. And we could talk more about that on Sunday. Sunday should be a lot of fun because we're going to have local coverage all afternoon long leading into that Warrior game for you here on 95.7 The Game. In case you haven't heard, that's also Niners-Cowboys Sunday Night Football. So 1 to 4, Evan Giddings and Lorenzo Neal will be live from down in Santa Clara at the Hilton. If you're down there for a Niner pregame, stop by, say what's up to the boys. That's from 1 to 4. I will be standing by at Chase Center at 4. I'll have you for an hour from 4 to 5, and then Tim Roy and company will take over at 5 with tip-off at 5:30. So we're live and local beginning at 1 all day long on Sunday as we gear up for what should be a big and awesome day of local sports here in the Bay Area. But I'm focused here on the Warriors and the Clippers because that should be a fun game, the home opener. I can't wait to be out there at Chase Center once again. If you're there, you see me, stop by, say what's up. I'd love to say hello to all you guys tuning in here to Warriors Wrap-Up and Warriors Live. I'll be there for Warriors Live and Warriors Wrap-Up, but that should be a lot of fun. But to get back to this game, I think something else that Eric was talking about was the starting lineup and Buddy Hield, and we can get into that. We're going to take a break here in a few minutes, and we will, and we'll dive more into this lineup on the other side. And we got to hear from Coach Kerr as well. And I know Buddy Hield himself has also talked post-game. We'll hear a little bit from Buddy himself as well. I just think the starting lineup is as simple as the group doesn't mesh well enough together. It's not really, and I know there's a lot of talk out there that is hyper-focused on Jonathan Kuminga And through 2 games, I mean, there's no doubt of that starting group, he has had the worst start to the season. I'm not shying away from that, and that is very clear and obvious. But I don't think that lineup does him any favors. They're playing him as the 3. So that lineup is Steph Curry, Andrew Wiggins at the 2, which is strange. Jonathan Kuminga at the 3 might be even more strange. And then it is Draymond Green and Trayce Jackson-Davis. I do not think that lineup has enough consistent shooting to make it work. Because what's happening for Jonathan Kuminga, he's kind of getting squeezed. In that lineup, which is where he's played the majority of his minutes so far this season, and by the way, you look at the minute totals tonight, I'm not saying this is going to indicate what might happen the rest of the season. Jonathan Kuminga played 17 minutes and 40 seconds. The only starter who played fewer minutes is Trayce Jackson-Davis. That's normal for Warriors because they generally go small ball. We saw Draymond small ball 5. We saw Slow-Mo small ball 5. We saw Looney 5. So they got a number of different players they play at the 5. Generally, they're starting 5. It was the same case for Looney last year. Generally, their starting 5 does not play that many minutes. So the only starter that played fewer minutes than Kuminga was the starting 5, and that is to be expected. Off the bench, Buddy Hield played more minutes than Kuminga. Podziemski played more minutes than Kuminga. Kyle Anderson and Moses Moody played more minutes than Kuminga. Now, some of that is because of those garbage time minutes at the end as well. So I think those numbers, those minutes tell you that Steve Kerr has noticed that as well. I'm not going to say and if we can call it the failure of that starting group is on Jonathan Kuminga. I don't think it is. I think the failure is in the construction of that lineup because what's happening is with not a lot of shooting, defenses are just able to collapse inside. And right now, if Kuminga cannot get inside, he doesn't have a counter move. He doesn't have the counter punch, right? He's not a good enough shooter from outside. He took one contested corner 3 where the 7-foot Lauri Markkanen was right in his face. I don't know what that decision was, but then he puts his head down and tries to drive and get up a shot, looks for a foul, doesn't get the whistle, throws up a wild shot, it clanks off the rim, and Utah has a fast break the other way. It's difficult on him because he doesn't have enough shooters around him. To maximize Kuminga, you got to have shooters around him. He should be on the floor with Steph, with Buddy Hield, potentially with DeAnthony Melton, and that's when you get Kuminga at his best, when he's able to get downhill, get into the paint, and score down low, when you have other shooters around him that the defense has to respect. We can talk more about that on the other side. I want to get more into it, and I can tell already the text line does as well. 888-957-9570. You can also hit us up and give us a call. 888-957-9570. Plus, we will hear from Steve Kerr coming up on the other side as well. Warriors wrap up. The Dubs dominant again today. They win by 41 in Salt Lake City. More Warriors wrap up next right here on 95.7 The Game.
I'm Bob Burke, founder and chairman of Burke America Parts Group, a family of brands that includes Repair Clinic.
Now back to Warriors Wrap Up on 95.7 The Game.
How about Buddy Hield tonight? He was cooking. 27 points, 10 for 14 from the field, 7 for 9 from downtown. And you just heard Tim Roy, the great voice of the Warriors here on 95.7 The Game. He was shocked how wide open Buddy Hield was. And yeah, I can't blame you, Tim. At that point, he was what? He finished 7 for 9, so he was 6 for 8 from downtown. And Utah was like, yeah, we don't need to guard that guy. Yeah, that's all right. Not a good idea. Utah, Buddy made him pay on that moment, and he made him pay all night long. 10 for 14, 7 for 9 from downtown, 27 points, a game high. He was also tied for a game best, plus 24. I'll give you Warrior fans one guess, and you got to get your guesses in quick. Who was Buddy Hield tied with on plus minus tonight? If you were listening to Warriors Wrap Up on Wednesday, that's your hint. That's your hint, because we talked about this guy in plus minus on Wednesday. Who do you think was tied with Buddy Hield for the best plus minus on the night for the Golden State Warriors? It is a recurring theme in this guy's career. I'll give you another hint. Relatively short-lived career with the Golden State Warriors. It is a recurring theme. I'll let that set there for just a little bit. You can shoot me your text, 888-957-9570. Chime in on the Comcast Business text line. Get your guesses in, and then I will let you know the answer there. But Buddy Hield was awesome. How about this from the 415? And this is something that I think is a really, really good point. This comes, again, courtesy of the Comcast Business text line from the 415. Talking about Buddy Hield and maybe potentially changing the starting lineup. The 415 says, I'm leaving Buddy on the bench. I'm not messing with his role. This is the first time in the Curry era we have a scoring option when Curry goes to the bench. It's a really good point. I think they've had some scoring options. I mean, Barbosa way back when, and Sean Livingston, even Mo Spates back then, right? Like you had Andre Iguodala, maybe not the greatest scoring option, but you had guys. I get your point, though, 415. It felt like it's been a while. It's been a while since you had that reliable veteran scorer who could just come in and get your points. So, good point. But that's really beside the point. The point from the 415 that I think we gotta discuss here a little bit is the move to the starting lineup, and we're talking really here in something that's not going to happen anytime soon, at least not imminently. If you are to make a move to the starting lineup, is it just as simple as saying, Hield, you start, and are you moving Wiggins to the bench? Are you moving Jonathan Kuminga to the bench? Are you moving Trayce Jackson-Davis to the bench? Because here's how I feel about the Jonathan Kuminga conversation. I don't think Jonathan Kuminga is a 3. I think Jonathan Kuminga is a 4. I don't think a lot of lineups work with Jonathan Kuminga at the 3. In today's NBA, you just need shooting 1, 2, and 3. You need it. Like if Andrew Wiggins is your third best shooter, you can make that work. Third best 3-point shooter on the floor at any given time. You can make that work. That's how it was when the Warriors won the championship in 2022. It was Steph, Clay, Wiggins. Like you can make that work. If Kuminga, and we're 2 games in, so I want to couch all of this by saying like Kuminga could turn around and shoot 40% from 3 from the season, and this would entirely be moot. Through 2 games so far this year, it seems like he's offensively very similar to what he was last year, at least shooting the basketball. If that's who he is moving forward for this year, I'm not so sure Kuminga is really ever going to work at the 3. How about this statistic for you? Jonathan Kuminga started the game, of course, as the 3, right? It was Steph Curry, Andrew Wiggins, Jonathan Kuminga, Draymond Green, Trayce Jackson-Davis. Kuminga at the 3. When he was the 3, he was -9 to start the first half, okay? When he was the 3 in that stint, the Warriors were outscored by 9 points. And that came, I have the exact number here in just a second. That was in the first 5.5 minutes. It was 15-6 Utah, 5.5 minutes in. -9 at that spot. And it's not all on Kuminga. It's more about construction of a lineup. When Jonathan Kuminga was a 4 to close the first half, the Warriors put together one of the best runs of the game. +10 to close that first half. And that was an interesting lineup. The lineup to close the half, and this might be the lineup that a lot of you were calling for, maybe. Although I think most Warrior fans are saying maybe Kuminga shouldn't even start. Maybe Wiggins shouldn't start. Steph, Buddy Hield, Andrew Wiggins, Jonathan Kuminga, and Draymond Green. That was the 5 on the floor at the end of the first half until Draymond picked up his third with like a minute to go, third foul, and had to be subbed out before he picked up his 4th before halftime. Steph Curry, Buddy Hield, Andrew Wiggins, Jonathan Kuminga, and Draymond Green. That construction of a lineup is so much smoother offensively. It's probably not, it's definitely not as good defensively. Hield is not the defender that Trayce Jackson-Davis is. And some of this also has to do with maybe opponent. And are you playing a big man? Are you playing the T-Wolves? Or are you playing the Blazers, who are really big? Or are you playing a smaller basketball team? That has something to do with it as well. It also comes a question of, if you're playing Draymond at the 5, how long can you stomach that? How long are you comfortable playing Draymond, who's getting up there in years, right? How long can you stomach playing him the 5? Do you feel like you might wear him out? Do you feel like you're maybe going to get him hurt at some point? But that lineup just flows so much better. Steph Curry, Buddy Hield, Andrew Wiggins, Jonathan Kuminga, and Draymond Green. And the reason I say, I have the 650 on the Comcast Business text line. Grandy, don't break my heart. It could be soon, right? Asking about when a lineup change could be made. Well, without further ado, why don't we hear from Steve Kerr? Because I'm sure Steve Kerr was asked this post game. The starting 5, Steve. How long are you gonna let this go? So I'll get to that right here. But if you want to join the conversation, get in line now. I'll come to your phone calls right after Steve Kerr. So line them up, 888-957-9570. That's also the Comcast Business text line. Steve Kerr, post-game, after the Warriors win over the Utah Jazz, 127-86. Here's Kerr's post-game comments.
What can you say about what Buddy did again in just the first 2 games? And what
it was incredible watching him that first half. He brings so much energy to the floor, and part of it is the way he plays, just seeking those shots and seeking the threes and sprinting the floor. He runs so hard both directions and sets a tone for us. And then the other part is he's just an incredible person and teammate, full of joy. Bench is laughing, all the time with him. What he brings to the team goes way beyond, just his shooting, but that's massive in and of itself. So we're thrilled to have Buddy.
Has this gone even better than you could imagine through 2 games?
So what?
Did these first 2 games go better than you could?
Yeah, I mean, we couldn't have imagined this. I mean, winning 2 road games in the manner that we did, the guys defending the way they did, the energy, the connection, supporting each other. Nobody really playing that many minutes, but everybody really kind of fueling each other and supporting one another. It was fun to watch.
About the defense, you guys had 15 steals tonight, I think 12 in the first game. I mean, just the activity on that side, what's really standing out?
I think the overall athleticism of this team jumps out at me. We didn't have that last year, and just on-ball pressure, adding, DeAnthony and obviously a healthy Gary, but, Wiggs and JK are both, just big and athletic, and Kyle is an incredible defender. You see all the plays he makes. He's not the most athletic guy, but long and smart and great hands. And so up and down the roster, we've got We've got great defender. I thought Draymond was amazing on Markkanen early, and that set a great tone.
Well, that Steve Kerr postgame didn't hear the question that he later got asked. I will paraphrase it for you in just a second. But, I mean, heaping so much praise on Buddy Hield, and that's what every single Warriors person who has been asked has done over the last month now, since really like preseason and training camp began. But the money question, the one that you're all waiting to hear Steve Kerr answer, was this one. Steve Kerr was asked about the starting five, and specifically the struggles offensively. Again, the starting five: Steph Curry, Andrew Wiggins, Jonathan Kuminga, Draymond Green, and Trayce Jackson-Davis. Here's what Steve Kerr had to say. Quote, "It's obviously not ideal from a spacing standpoint, so they're going to have to find their rhythm. The whole point of it is for defensive purposes." And he added that he's going to continue with the big starting lineup, at least for the time being. So that's why I say, maybe to the chagrin of the 650 on the Comcast Business text line, don't cross your fingers. That same starting five will start Sunday at home against the Clippers. I would imagine they'll start Tuesday against the Pelicans and Wednesday against the Pelicans as well. We will see. That would be my guess. And it is an issue of spacing, no doubt about it. I would imagine we're going to get to a point where the Warriors maybe lose a game or two, or they allow a bad team to hang around in a game or two that they shouldn't have, because of some offensive inefficiencies from that group, and that might be something that forces a hand. I mean, it's either that, and eventually a change happens, or it starts working out. And I'm just not so sure I see the way it's going to work out like that offensively. Now, it has the potential to be a really good defensive lineup. But I mean, look what the Warriors did defensively tonight. Like, that's, I mean, bad on me. I've been on the air for almost 45 minutes and haven't really talked about the defense at all. The Utah Jazz shot 31% from the field tonight, 21% from downtown. They scored 86 points. In today's NBA, like, that's wild. Like, that would be back in the 90s or 80s, a team scoring like 65 points. Like 86 points in today's NBA. What was the over-under in this game? I have it here. Give me 1 sec. Let me just load it up. Let's see if I can find it. I'm not logged into my account. Give me 1 sec. But the over-under, I think, was like around 127 or something like that tonight. It was way, way up there. The over-under tonight for Warriors Jazz. No, pardon me, 100. I meant 200. It was even higher than that. 234.5. The over-under was 234.5. The Warriors scored 127, and we didn't even sniff the over-under. So I hope you guys were all under-bettors out there, because Utah did not hold up their end of the bargain. The Warriors defense dominated this basketball game, 86 points allowed. So to Steve Kerr's credit, and I know that lineup, that starting five, doesn't really play a ton of minutes together. Basically, they play the first 6 minutes of each half, and that's about it. Through 2 games now, that starting group is +3 in about 21 minutes together this year. So a big part of that was the run they put together at the end of or at the beginning of the second half, when they opened the third quarter on a 22-10 run in about 5.5 minutes. But other than that, the three segments, the beginning of the game against Portland, at a halftime against Portland, and the beginning of the game today, through those 3 portions of time they were on the floor together, it was a struggle. It was a struggle. The fourth instance we saw that group together, they figured it out. We'll see if that continues. I guess maybe there's some fans, and I see them on the Comcast Business text line, maybe hoping that it doesn't work out because they want to see a change. But I mean, if they figure it out, then you got nothing to worry about. So we'll see how it goes from here for the Golden State Warriors. But keep in mind that as well. How about Buddy Hield? Buddy Hield talking about different groups on the floor and rotations and starting lineups and how everything is working for him right now. Here's Buddy Hield postgame today.
And sometimes I don't even know what grew out there. I just thought that I'd be hooping, just be hooping. I just know that Steph and once you have two shoes out there, and the way everybody gravitates to steps, I just gotta find ways to get open and try to get him open and try to give him as much easy looks as he can get. And he's a workaholic, and this ship doesn't run without him.
Yeah, I mean, Buddy Hield. I mean, it's hard to listen to that guy talk and not have a smile on your face. I'm seeing a lot of people on the Comcast Business text line calling for Moses Moody as well. I mean, Moody today was solid and effective once again. Some of this came in garbage time, but he had 12 points. He was 5 of 10 from the field, 2 of 5 from downtown, and nearly 19 minutes off the bench today. The Warriors are seemingly going to stick with not only the starting group, they're going to stick with the 12-man rotation. And, I mean, at this point, it means Moody is going to continue to get a look. And he was solid once again today. I've also thought maybe the Warriors could start Moses Moody. Maybe they could start D'Anthony Melton. I'm not so sure that it works out if they start Brandon Podziemski. I know that was what it felt like was going to happen for a lot of the offseason. I just don't think there's enough size there between Steph and Podziemski. Moody gives you a little bit more shooting than Kuminga does, and he's solid defensively. Melton does the same thing, plus Melton is a ball handler, a secondary ball handler. But then you also have the thought of you want a strong second unit, and if the Warriors are going to play 12 guys, I mean, I guess it might not even really matter who's going to start. There's so many different permutations of what the Warriors can do rotations-wise. Another group that I think is interesting, and this maybe is more of just like a pairing than anything else. I mean, Slow-Mo at the small ball 5 alongside Draymond is fun. Slow-Mo and Draymond on the floor together. You almost have two Draymonds together. I know you're going to need shooters elsewhere. You got to pair that with like Steph and Buddy Hield. You could go Steph, Podziemski, Hield, and then Draymond and Slow-Mo, which is a lot of fun. Like, that's interesting. The Warriors have so many different places that they can go to. Steve Kerr kind of has an impossible task ahead of him because there's so many different combinations that can work for the Warriors, and they all could work in different ways, right? It's something that we talked about on Wednesday here on Warriors Wrap Up. The Warriors can kind of mix and match and kind of play to their opponent. Like, if you got a big team, they can go bigger. Like, this starting lineup is a bigger lineup. It's not really like big in the front line because it's Draymond and Trace, who are generally smaller than every other 4 and every other 5 in the NBA. But it's much bigger on the wings, and 1, 2, and 3, it's bigger than a lot of other teams. And they have length and athleticism. They can get up and down the floor and run, and they can rebound the hell out of the basketball. You can go smaller, quicker. I mean, we haven't even mentioned GP2. GP2 as well is the guy who plays ultra small ball 4. Like, you throw him in there, and it looks like he's the 2 guard, but he's really playing the 4's role, right? Like, you have a lot of different players you can throw in there. And by the way, I realized I have buried the lead. I opened this segment by teasing who was the Warriors' plus-minus leader tonight, along with Buddy Hield at plus 24. It was Brandon Podziemski. 24 and a half minutes, he was plus 24. And he got in the score sheet on offense today. How about that? After going scoreless against the Blazers on Wednesday, Podziemski 15.7 for 14 from the field, 1 of 5 from downtown, 5 rebounds, had an assist, had a block shot. He was effective as always, and it's just pretty simple. When Podziemski's out there, a lot of good things happen, and that was the case again today. The 510 on the Comcast Business text line. Keep the lineup as is. Don't fix it if it's not broken, from Matt in Berkeley. Matt, that is exactly what Steve Kerr is going to do. And he's leaning into a more defense-heavy lineup. And you got to admit it's at least paying some early dividends on that end of the floor. Like, when the Warriors were at their best, I think, maybe not a misconception, I think a lot of us Warrior fans and those of us here in the Bay Area that watch them night in and night out know this. But when the Warriors were at their peak, and they were winning championships year in and year out, and they nearly put together like perfect postseasons where they didn't lose a single game, right? Like the KD era and even before the KD era, and also in 2022. We think all the splash and the fancy shooting and the half-court buzzer beaters by Steph and all that offensive stuff, and we just think, well, man, they just put together an offense that no other team could run with. They also are like the best defense in the NBA. Like all of those championship years, top 5 defense. And for some of them, like the best defense in the NBA. Like they led the league in pace and scoring, and they also were the best defense in the league. And I think there's a lot of people out there who kind of forget that this was also as good of an offensive team or as good of a defensive team as it was an offensive team. And in a way, this team's identity has always been born through their defense. And that's why Draymond Green has been so important, although he might annoy you, and he certainly was annoying last year, and his inability to stay available. But that's a big part of this as well. How about this? How about this? And these numbers. This, I think, goes into exactly what we're talking about with the defense and the Warriors running up and down and winning the battle of the fast break and winning the turnover battle, right? How about these numbers from the Golden State Warriors? The hustle stats. The hustle stats. Points in the paint. The Warriors outscore the Blazers 54-34. Fast break points. Wait till you get a load of this one. Fast break points. Utah didn't have a single fast break point. 13-0 was the fast break points advantage. How about turnovers? Utah committed 22. The Warriors committed 13. So 22 turnovers for Utah, 13 for the Warriors. Points off of turnovers. The Warriors had the edge there, 29-13. How about on the boards? Rebounds, 60 for the Warriors, 45 for the Jazz. How about offensive rebounds? 19 for the Warriors, 14 for the Utah Jazz. Like the Warriors, how about second chance points? 29 for the Warriors, 19 for the Jazz. The Warriors dominated at every single hustle category that you possibly could. In rebounds, in points in the paint, in fast break points, in turnovers, in points off turnovers, in second chance points. Like the Warriors, and I know it's the Utah Jazz, but the Warriors are doing all of the things that when you break down a box score, you say, that's why that team won. The Warriors did every single one of them. And I know when you win by 41 points, that might be like duh. They won by 41. They have to do those things in order to win by 41. But these are all just good signs. These are all just good signs. And it's something the Warriors weren't always the best at last year. Like there were a couple of years ago when the Warriors ran so much. They got up and down and pushed the tempo. It was almost too much. In fact, it was too much. They got a little too crazy, right? That was the final year of Jordan Poole, and it was frustrating. That was the Game 7 Kings year, right? Where Steph scores 50 at Golden One in sack, and then they lose in the second round to the Lakers. That frustrating year, right? That was the Steph, get on the bus speech going to Sacramento for Game 7. That was a frustrating year, and a part of it was because I think this team didn't really ever find the right match or mix of running, playing the half court, relying on the defense, and then they reverted too far back last year. They were too slow. They didn't take advantage of Wiggins and Kuminga and Trace Jackson Davis and Draymond, who can all run the floor enough. This year, I think they've found a good medium, and the teams that are the best on the fast break also tend to be the teams that are best on offense. On defense. Because the defenses, the good defense get lots of stops, lots of steals, lots of deflections, lots of turnovers. That leads the fast break offense. So those go hand in hand. And Steve Kerr's emphasis, one of them has been 3-point shots, and they've been putting up a lot of threes. How many do they put up today? 53 point attempts for the Warriors, and they made 20 of them. That's nice, easy math, 40%. You shoot 50 threes and you make 40% of them, you're going to win a lot of basketball games. That was one point of emphasis. The other was the Warriors are going to get out and run. And it's one thing to say that. It's one thing to do it. It's another thing to do it when you have a defense that's getting lots of stops. And the Warriors right now have a defense that's getting lots of stops. So that is also a really good sign for the Golden State Warriors. One thing I also liked to see from this team, and it kind of is opposite of what happened at times last year. The Golden State Warriors responded to a run by Utah immediately. So I never really felt like this game was in question, right? Like the Warriors, maybe other than the very, very beginning of the game when the team got down by 9 or 11 in the first quarter. I think they got down by 11. The starting group got down 9, and then they made a sub, got down 11, and then it all changed from there. So the Warriors were up by like 25, 26, 27, as far as like 32, I think, through the third quarter. Utah put a little bit of a run together late third, early fourth. They got back within 20 points. The lead was down to 94-74 with 10:30 to go in the fourth quarter. Again, at that point, you're not really scared that you're going to lose the game, but it felt like this was an inflection point. Like, is the Utah run going to continue? Could they get it down to 15 in a couple minutes? Could it be down to 10 at the 6-minute mark? Like, that was an inflection point. The Warriors responded after their lead was cut to 10. Over the next 3:30, 12-2 run. They give up 2 points in 3.5 minutes. Like, they did it with defense again. A couple of Buddy Hield threes. Game over. Game over. And I felt like there were moments last year where the Warriors, maybe they play really well for 3 quarters, then everything comes crashing down and they just can't stop the run. They didn't even really let this run get off the ground. It never was really too concerning, and that's a really good sign for this Golden State Warrior team as well. So I liked to see that as well for the Warriors. But there's no doubt you are playing the Utah Jazz, you're playing the Portland Trail Blazers, but also, I mean, this was historic. The second largest home loss for the Utah Jazz ever. The Warriors are the first team to win their first 2 games of the year by 35 or more points, and their plus 77 margin through 2 games, the largest margin of victory through 2 games to begin a season in NBA history. How about that? Wow. Incredible from the Golden State Warriors. Okay, I want to play one more piece of sound, and then we'll wrap things up here in just a little bit. Draymond Green, this is an important piece of sound. Draymond Green asked about the starting 5. Steph Curry, Andrew Wiggins, Jonathan Kuminga, Draymond Green, and Trayce Jackson-Davis. Draymond asked about that group and some of the uneven performances from that 5 so far. Here's Draymond Green postgame.
You know, that unit is still learning how to play. We didn't have Wiggs all training camp. And then obviously, you know, sometimes I'm on Steph's team. Most of the times I'm not in training camp, you know, and you're just kind of trying to even things out so you have great practice. Now, you know, this lineup is getting a chance to get some minutes together. And I think what you'll start to see is we'll be able to settle in more offensively. We're coming out in that first quarter and everybody's just trying to get to it. Go, go, go. Because we want to do, you know, we want that lineup to do well so bad. And so everybody's kind of coming out pressing. Then once we settle down, that lineup, you know, it takes over our size, our athleticism. We're getting out and running. We're attacking the rim, getting kick-out threes. And the game is changing for us in the third quarter. So we just got to do a better job. And that's probably on me, you know, to make sure that when we're coming out, we're getting into good stuff and everybody's settled down. We move the ball around. We get good looks.
I think Draymond hit the nail on the head there. There is a little bit of pressing from that group offensively. At least we've seen it to begin in Portland and to begin tonight in Utah. There's a little bit of, I'm going to go and get mine. And I think through 2 games, and it's an extremely small sample size. I'm not writing off anybody or thinking that it's never going to work. Through 2 games, the biggest culprit of that, and it's pretty clear, it's Jonathan Kuminga. Where, again, when there isn't a ton of spacing, he's really not sure what to do because his shot isn't good enough yet. He's really good at getting to the paint, and when he's in the paint, scoring. I mean, he can jump higher than almost anybody. He's an athletic freak. He's long. He's quick. Like, he's good at that. But when you don't have a ton of shooting around him, the defenses know that when Kuminga has the ball, he's going to put his head down and get to the rim. And when defenses know that's coming, they can generally stop it. And until Kuminga develops the counter to that, I'm not sure it's going to change when he's in there with the lineup that is playing and shooting like that one does. There was a moment. Let me bring up my notes here really quick. There was a moment in the first quarter. It was very early in the game. Kuminga, this is exactly what I'm talking about. The defense knows he's going to try to drive. Kuminga drives kind of out of control a little bit. I think he was trying to go at Markkanen. Markkanen, not the greatest defender, but he's got length. That's not easy to go against. And he tries to draw the foul, doesn't get it, throws up a shot, rimmed out, and going back the other way. I'm not sure if he was maybe complaining to a ref for a split second or if he was frustrated. Whatever the case is, doesn't really matter. He wasn't fully invested in going back the other way. And what happened was he double committed to the Jazz shooter. I'm not sure who it was. It might have been Jordan Clarkson in the corner where I believe Andrew Wiggins was already guarding, and he left Keontae George wide open up top for a three-pointer, and he hit the three, and I think that's what prompted Steve Kerr to call a timeout. Like, that's a moment that can't happen, where first you kind of put your head down, you say, all right, I'm going to get mine off here, instead of looking to pass, potentially drive and kick, and then you don't get back immediately on defense, a little bit of confusion, don't find the right guy, results in the three the other way. That's a rough sequence. And that, I think, is exactly what Draymond Green is talking about, and he took it, he shouldered the blame himself. I've got to get us in the right things, and I think Draymond is right as well, but it's also got to be on Kuminga to realize, hey, they're packing the paint here. I'm not going to be able to get mine. Maybe I'll drive, draw some more defenders, kick it out to Wiggins in the corner, kick it out to Draymond in the corner, who, by the way, 40% from deep last year, nearly. Like, he can hit that shot. I think that's where this group offensively has to get to. And we'll see how it goes. I will say there's not a lot of pressure to make a change right now because through 2 games, you've outscored your opponents by 77 points. So, let's be real. They're not going to change anything until they have to. And they don't have to because they're 2-0 with a historic margin of victory through 2 games. So that is that, in my opinion. Okay, before we get on out of here, we got to handle crashing the boards, which is brought to you by Chilton Auto Body, the Bay Area leader in collision repair. This might be the easiest one to hand out of the season, not just through 2 games, but maybe of the entire season, unless we get a crazy 20-rebound performance from someone coming up. But this is an easy one tonight. Andrew Wiggins was crashing the boards tonight. Again, brought to you by Chilton Auto Body. 13 rebounds for Andrew Wiggins. Man, you love to see that from Wiggs because, again, though that rebound number, that category for Andrew Wiggins, I think it tells a major, major story of just how invested he was in the basketball game. And an invested Wiggins might be the Warriors' second most important player, third most important player. It's definitely no lower than third. He was the Warriors' second best player on a championship team in 2022. That Wiggins is extremely valuable to this Warrior team, so that was really good to see. He was crashing the boards all night long. 13 rebounds from Andrew Wiggins. That is crashing the boards, brought to you by Chilton Auto Body, the Bay Area leader in collision repair. All right, that'll do it for Warriors Wrap-Up tonight here on 95.7 The Game. We'll be back on Sunday. We got a special day for you on Sunday here on 95.7 The Game. Evan Giddings and Lo Neal live from the Hilton Santa Clara outside of Levi's ahead of Sunday Night Football, Niners and Cowboys. That begins at 1. They'll go for 3 hours until 4. At 4, they will hand it off to me. I'll be live at Chase Center to get you ready for the Warriors home opener, Warriors and Clippers. Tip-off is at 5:30. Our coverage begins at 4. It's a special hour-long edition of Warriors Live. Normally, you only get me for 30 minutes of Warriors Live. On Sunday, it will be an hour of Warriors Live. So 60 minutes of Warriors Live, beginning at 4, after Evan and Lowe from 1 to 4, and then I'll hand things off to Tim Roy and company beginning at 5, with tip-off shortly after 5:30. And then I've got you covered post-game on Sunday evening as well. Until then, thanks so much for tuning in. For Cam Williams behind the glass, for my guy Chris O'Connell, my name is Mark Randy signing off. Thanks so much for tuning in. The Warriors victorious tonight. They're now 2-0. We'll talk Sunday on 95.7 The Game.
5 weeks with a strained elbow.